whatever she's having, we'll take two.
Okay, so today I'm going to teach you how to use text in Final Cut. When working in Final Cut, you'll look and find your viewer. It'll say viewer at the top. And right down here towards the bottom is the letter A. It looks like a camera strip with the letter A. That's for all your text options. You can go in here. There are different categories to choose from. The primary one that we use is this category. You'll scroll all the way down to text, and then you have all these choices to choose from. Students in my classes they've gone through all of these. I'll teach you scrolling text tomorrow, but I'm going to actually talk to you about outline text today. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and choose outline text. It's going to open up a new window here, and you're going to go ahead and select controls. And when you go in here, you're going to go ahead and obviously in this little gray window, it's okay, and start typing your text. So I'm going to type in Miss G for Miss Glennon. I do I do not like Lucidia Grande. I don't like the looks of the font. It's a very skinny pencil font, but I also don't like the fact that it's the default font. So if you use Lucidia Grande, it's a no-no. So you want to always change your font to something else. And just no Lucidia Grande. Okay. You can choose whether or not you want it to be bold, italic. In these categories here, you can decide if you want to center it left and right. I just leave those alone. You can also decide on the size. So if I click over here, Miss G, and then I increase the size and go back, of course, it makes the size bigger. Um, I can also get in the tracking. So if I adjust the tracking, it does spaces. See how spaced out it got, which is way out there. So if you download a font where the letters are like too close together, you can adjust the tracking and fix that. Okay, now I've really got them too far apart. Okay, let's see. All right, so I'm going to do this, but I'm going to also change the font. I'm going to go ahead and change it to a chalkboard. And then over here is your text color. So as you see, my text color is white. But I also have a black background, but you can't see it because it's on a black background. So I'm going to go ahead and change my text color by selecting text color, double click, and go and select, I'm going to select this blue. And for my outline, I am going to choose a lime green might not really show, so I'm going to choose purple. I like purple. Okay, and then if you click over now, you can see it, right? Okay, one of the things I also don't care much for is how thick the outline stroke. It's called a stroke. That's the outline around the text. I think it's very thick, and I like to see it smaller. So to change the size of that, you would go over to your line width. So move it left, and you'll notice it got thinner. You can also go back to here into the controls and go to text line softness. If you drag it to the right, you can make it look like a glow. Let me adjust the line width and make it larger in this case. I do this because you can get a bigger glow. So if you want a bigger glow and you want to do glow text, then of course increase your line width. Okay, I'm going to leave my text like this. So I've got my colors. I don't really mess with these down here. So you have to drag it from the viewer and place it into your timeline. I'm going to go ahead and place this on video track 1. Notice it's black behind there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this. Command C, move my playhead and right here, and then do Command V, and I'm going to drag it up. This time I'm going to add a background behind this. So what I do is I go back to the letter A, and this time I'm going to choose matte. And you can choose color, solid color. I just choose color. Go to the controls palette. Right now it would be gray. So I'm going to go ahead and select a color. I'll do a lighter shade of this purple and say okay and drag it. I always drag it past that timeline because you know it slices the clips. Drag it under the text, and so now as you can see you have the background color instead of this. Okay, you can also double click the text clip. Make sure on the canvas that the image plus wireframe is selected, and you can increase the size of the text. You can also move it to different locations, which you'll need to do in your projects. So you move it in different areas. One thing about text, when it first comes in, it comes in and if you push play, it's really long. So I would want you to go ahead and slice the clip, or you can basically shorten it with your select tool. So I'm going to, with my select arrow, I'm going to just drag this one in, and I'm also going to drag the background. And I also like for text to fade in and fade out as well as backgrounds. So in that case, I go back to my pen tool, make sure the toggle overlay is selected in the bottom left hand corner, which it is, and then I'm going to start adding the fade in and fade out like you have already learned in your previous lessons. You want to be real careful with that. I did not do a good job of that. So you want to be real careful and make sure it's a complete fade in and fade out. And you also want to make sure that your text doesn't fade in and come into the scene before your background. It looks weird. The text is there and all of a sudden a background pops in. So you need to work on your timing there. Okay, you want to also remember to Command S often to save. So I'm going to go ahead and Command S. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to place an animated background behind your text like you did in LiveType. You essentially can do pretty much the same thing you do in LiveType in Final Cut with the animated background and the text, because you can actually move text around the screen too by keyframing. That is learned in Multimedia and Video 2 as well as Broadcast. So I'm going to go ahead and Command H to minimize. I'm going to go ahead and go to Network Shares and Middle School and A and B. On the A and B drive, there's a folder called Juicer Jumpbacks. You have two categories. You have new jumpbacks. If you click on that, you have business and characters. We use these a lot for How TV, where for like our Husky headlines and such. And so you push play and they're like animated backgrounds. So you can use any of the items, QuickTime files from that. I'm not going to save that. The other category I like is on the A and B drive in the Juicer Jump Back is the Juicer folder, and go to the catalog. When you go into the catalog, you click in the folders. They're all different. And then when you see the first two pictures and a number, usually the file that follows it with the same number is going to be these two photos combined to make the animated image. So you want to look for this number. So this is 031031031.mov. You want the .mov. So if I click on that, it should play these two photos, you see? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and while I'm here, I'm going to actually take this jump back, which is 32. I want these two photos. Actually, it's not a good color coordination. I'm going to take this one, which is 03. I like this one a lot better. All right. So you'll drag those onto a folder. So I'm going to go back into Final Cut, and I'm going to move my playhead to the end, do File, Import, File, and I'm going to go grab that jumper from my desktop, which was the 003. I do have a lot of stuff on my desktop. It's right there. It is. Okay. I'm going to drag it in my timeline. I'm going to shorten it because it's long. These do have to be rendered. In order to shorten, I do have to move back to my select tool here, drag it left, or I can slice it with the razor blade. I'm going to actually, for time's sake, I'm going to Command C to copy this one and go over here and Command V. And I'd have to shorten it obviously and refix the fade outs of the jumper and the actual text. Here we go, because it needs to be right, and place it down. So I'm going to Command A, Command R to render. So, and again, I can move that text anywhere I want. The other thing is you also can take your text and drag it and place it over video clips. So if I move the playhead, you can actually see that it'll show up over video, and I've also placed some already over photos. So you can do the same thing with photos. Okay, last thing I'm going to show you is how to download and install a font. So I'm going to go ahead and Command S to save, Command Q to quit, yes to this because I have to close out Final Cut. Go to Google Chrome, go to DaFont. Some of you may already know this website, DaFont Download Fonts. Click on there, and you can search by category up here. I'm going to actually choose, let's see, how about, I don't really care much for these. I'll just go ahead and choose this, this Wild Ones. So I'm going to choose Download, and then I'm going to double click that. It'll unzip the folder. It's taken a while to download this because it's going the blue line. Okay, and then I'm going to click it to open it up. Well, it doesn't want to open. Okay, let me go to my downloads. Sometimes it'll just place it. I did double click. I'm going to go into Macintosh HD, downloads, and there they are. It actually made folders. Every time I was clicking, it was putting a folder in downloads. So I'm going to open up Wild Ones, the first folder that it made. And what you're going to look for is anything that says the name of the font plus .ttf or OTF. I can install both of these. So I'm going to go ahead and install the TTF. Double click it. It's going to bring up this window, and I'm going to choose Install Font. Okay, the font is installed. I'm going to click the OTF to see. Sometimes there's a difference. You really can't tell on this one. So, okay, I have the font. It's called Wild Ones. So now I'm going to go back to Final Cut, open it up, open the file, and continue on. So this time I'm going to go change the font, this one right here, which is the sample text. Go into Controls and click on here. I can type W because it's the W for it's alphabetized. So I'm looking for Wild Ones. There it is. And so voila, there's my text. Again, you can use your any text you download in LiveType or Photoshop, Word, which is great. Okay, and that is it. Okay, so today I'm going to go over more text, but this time it's scrolling credits. I do want to reemphasize something that I noticed yesterday. You guys, I explained to use outline text. So I noticed that a lot of students will go into the letter A, which is where you go to text, and students are just choosing text. They're just going text and for some reason just choosing text. And by choosing just the text, you don't get the option to actually have an outline. You don't get the color option. You only get one. So you don't get the option to do the outline color like I have around my name. Okay, so you got to go to text and choose outline text so that you get the choices. Not for sure if I did tell you this one thing yesterday. When you are working with outline text, you'll have the two boxes. You also have the option to give it a drop shadow. So you have to go to the motion tab to do the drop shadow, select drop shadow, and then it would add a drop shadow to the text. You can expand it by selecting the arrow, offset it, and do various things to the actual drop shadow. I often will tell you that for scrolling credits. So let me show you how to add scrolling. It's called scrolling text, but I call it scrolling credits. So if you'll notice, I'm going back to the letter A under the viewer option window, text, scrolling text. Okay, I have these here so y'all can see. Let me move this out of the way. Okay, so I am in scrolling text, and on the tutorial it tells you exactly what to do. Most of the time I believe the tutorial says to make yourself the director, and I'm going to make the director John Hughes, and producer, and producer. Now, I'm going to make this name long. I'm just going to put Ezekiel Fran. Watch what happens. Cisco, blah, 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 blah. Okay? So if I click on this now and drag this to the timeline and scrub through it, if this had been even a lot longer, sometimes the text goes too far. So one thing with credits, you have to make sure that when you are typing, for example, if I know something it's going to run over, I don't want it to auto wrap. Okay, I want to basically press the return key and then type the next part of it so um, it doesn't do what it was doing before. Okay. Okay, so it has actually stayed on one line. It didn't take the changes because I didn't double click on this first. Okay, anyways, so scrolling credits, when you run them, they always have to be rendered. A lot of times when you first type in all your information, they're really long and they may roll really slow. So you can move this in to make it shorter and it'll go faster, or extend it to make it longer. Another cool thing about scrolling text we do a lot in How TV is we actually take the text and we drag it over like our clips. So we do that a lot. Y'all notice with bloopers, if you watch our credits, if your teacher lets you, you'll see now I have my credits on top of whatever the video clip would be. Okay. This is actually just text, but you can put it over your video and over photos too. Okay. Anyways, another thing too, it's also hard to see the credits often. So you want to, some of the times I'll go, hey, I can't really see what's in your credits, and I'll ask you to go add a drop shadow, and it makes a difference to the text. Okay, let's talk about sound now. Sound, when you're working with sound, the only clips that do have sound are obviously the video clips. Photos don't have sound. So I'm going to go to a sound clip that I know has screaming in it, right? The screaming of the guy doing the bungee jumping. So let's go find him. There he is. And in here, there's a bunch of screaming. I'm going to render it real quick so we can hear it. Rendering is no fun. Okay, notice how it's hitting up in the reds. Now watch the screen. You're looking at your audio meter as I'm going through this clip. And it's hitting up in this red. You don't want that. It's too loud. So you have a couple of choices. A, you want to look to see, is the red happening through the entire clip? Well, in this case, the red is. And that's bad. So I'm going to double click that. You want to make sure that the toggle overlay down here in the bottom left is selected so that you can just adjust the sound clip. The sound clip is actually the audio is down here on the bottom, right here. So I'm going to move this up so y'all can see it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag the rubber band, it's like red, I call it a rubber band, the line down a little bit. Now I'm going to play it and watch the sound meter. That's actually really good for screaming. You can make it just a tad louder. I do like the volume to be around negative 12 decibels. So negative 12 is decibels, and it is okay for the sound to go into the yellows. So that's what it's doing right now. The last part, it's hard sometimes with clips. If let's say in how TV with anchors, you have one anchor that's talking really loud and one that's talking at this level. And so if you think you're just going to increase it for the entire clip just to hear the person that talks lower, then the person that's talking louder is going to be hitting in the reds when they talk. So in that case, if that were happening, you have a couple of choices. You could, and this is one of the hardest things to understand. Okay, you can come over and get your razor blade and slice the section of the clip where it's really loud. Then you can go back to your selection tool, move the rubber band up or down, and then watch your sound meter for that particular sound. You could also come over, which a lot of the students do prefer, is to use the pen tool. You can go and drop multiple points, like these anchor points, and then lower the sections like you did in GarageBand, like you mostly did with your fading in to fade out. But in this case, you're just basically lowering sections of the volume in the clips. Okay, if it's below the 12 decibels, it's a lot of times it's too soft. Okay, and that is it with sound.